most people believe they would handle a financial crisis better than average. A 2023 Federal Reserve report found that 37% of American adults could not cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. Not a major crisis. Not a job loss. $400. And yet in that same survey, over 70% of respondents described their financial situation as either good or okay. The gap between how people feel about their finances and what their finances can actually withstand is one of the most dangerous gaps in modern personal finance. But here's the thing. Financial stability is not about income. It is not about how much you earn. It is about 6 specific rules that create a structure strong enough to hold, regardless of what happens around it. Today, I am breaking down those exact 6 rules. The number most people anchor their financial identity to is their salary. Whatever they earn, that number becomes the measure of how well they are doing. And for most Americans, the widely cited benchmark is the median household income, which according to the U.S. Census Bureau's 2023 data sits at approximately $74,580 per year. That sounds like a middle ground number, a reasonable baseline. But here is what that number conceals entirely. The median means half of all households earn below that figure and half earn above it. But the average household income, pulled upward by extremely high earners at the top, is closer to $105,000, according to the same census data. Those two numbers describe the same country. The gap between them tells you that a relatively small number of very high earners are distorting what average looks like for everyone else. If your household earns $74,000, you are not behind the average. You are exactly at the midpoint of the entire country. But here is the more important truth. Income alone tells you almost nothing about financial stability. A household earning $74,000 with 6 months of emergency savings, 0 consumer debt, and consistent investment contributions is more financially stable than a household earning $150,000 with a car payment, credit card balances, and no liquid savings. The number on your paycheck is the starting point. The 6 rules are what you build with it. The first rule is the one most people have heard and the fewest people have actually implemented. Build a liquid emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential expenses and keep it completely separate from your regular spending accounts. According to Bankrate's 2024 Annual Emergency Savings Report, only 44% of Americans could cover a $1,000 emergency from savings alone. That means more than half the country is one car repair, one medical bill, or one unexpected home maintenance issue away from going into debt. And debt taken on under emergency conditions almost always carries the highest interest rates. Credit cards averaging 22% according to the Federal Reserve's 2024 data, which turns a single bad month into a financial setback that takes years to fully recover from. Think about someone like Rachel. She earns $68,000 a year, considers herself financially responsible, pays her bills on time, and has about $800 in her savings account at any given moment. In March of last year, her car needed a $1,400 repair. She put it on a credit card. 3 months later, her water heater failed, another $900 on the same card. By summer, she was carrying a $2,300 balance at 21% interest and making minimum payments. The emergency fund she never built cost her more in interest over the following 14 months than it would have cost to build it in the first place. The rule is not complicated. 3 months of essential expenses as a minimum: rent, utilities, food, insurance, minimum debt payments. Nothing else qualifies as an emergency fund. A brokerage account does not qualify. a credit card limit does not qualify. Liquid cash in a high-yield savings account, untouched, earning interest while it waits. That is the first rule, and it is the foundation everything else is built on. The second rule is eliminating all high-interest consumer debt as the single highest financial priority above everything except the emergency fund minimum. This is the rule most people apply halfway. They pay the minimum on credit cards while simultaneously putting money into a savings account earning 0.46%, the FDIC's 2024 national average for traditional savings accounts, while carrying a credit card balance at 22% interest. That is mathematically equivalent to borrowing money at 22% to save it at 0.46%. The loss on that transaction is 54% annually on every dollar sitting in savings while debt exists above it. A person with $3,000 in a savings account and $3,000 in credit card debt at 22% is not saving. They are losing approximately $645 per year in net interest, invisibly, automatically, without any single transaction making the cost obvious. The rule is specific. Once the emergency fund minimum is established, every available dollar above essential monthly expenses goes to eliminating consumer debt above 8% interest before any other financial goal. Not investing. Not saving for a down payment. Not building a secondary emergency fund. Eliminating the high-interest debt first, completely, because no investment reliably returns 22% annually to justify carrying it. The third rule is the one that separates people who feel stable from people who actually are stable over decades. Automate every financial decision that should not be a decision. A 2022 Vanguard study found that investors who automated their contributions consistently outperformed investors who made manual contribution decisions by an average of 1.5 percentage points per year. Not because automated investors chose better funds, but because they never skipped a contribution during a market downturn. Manual investors, people who looked at the market, felt nervous, and decided to wait, consistently missed the recoveries that followed the downturns. Over 30 years, 1.5 percentage points per year on a $200 monthly contribution is the difference between arriving at retirement with approximately $226,000 and arriving with approximately $303,000. The gap is not explained by strategy. It is explained entirely by removing the human decision from the moment of market fear. The rule applies to every financial behavior that should be consistent. Savings transfers, investment contributions, debt payments above the minimum, insurance premiums. If it requires a decision each month, it will eventually be skipped during a month when things feel tight. If it is automated, it happens regardless of how things feel. Financial stability does not come from making good decisions under pressure. It comes from building a system that removes pressure from the decision entirely. Stop here for a moment, because the first three rules are the defensive layer, the structure that keeps a financial life from breaking down under pressure. But the next three rules are different. They are the rules that build something. And the distinction between defending what you have and actively building toward what you want is where most financially stable people stop, and where genuinely financially secure people are only just beginning. This is the part most financial advice never reaches, and it is the part that makes the difference between being stable and being free. The fourth rule is investing consistently in low-cost, broad market index funds before any other wealth-building activity. The average actively managed mutual fund in the United States charges an expense ratio of approximately 0.68% annually according to Morningstar's 2023 fund fee study. The average S&P 500 index fund charges approximately 0.03%. That 0.65% difference sounds insignificant. On $100,000 invested over 30 years, assuming a 9% gross return It is the difference between ending with approximately $1,326,000 in a low-cost index fund and approximately $1,116,000 in an average fee actively managed fund. The fee difference alone costs over $200,000 in final outcome on the same gross return, and the research consistently shows that the higher fee-managed funds do not produce higher returns to justify the cost. A 2023 S&P Dow Jones Indices SPIVA report found that over a 15-year period, approximately 92% of actively managed large-cap funds underperformed their benchmark index after fees. 92%. The rule is not about picking the right stocks or finding the right manager. It is about owning the entire market at the lowest possible cost for the longest possible time, and allowing compounding to do what human intervention almost always interrupts. Consider two people, both 35 years old, both investing $500 per month, both earning a 9% gross annual return. The first person invests in an average actively managed fund at 0.68% annual cost. The second person invests in a Vanguard Total Market Index fund at 0.03% annual cost. At age 65, the first person has approximately $856,000. The second person has approximately $1,017,000. The extra $161,000 the index fund investor accumulates is not explained by investment skill. It is explained by not paying for investment skill that statistically does not outperform the absence of it. The fifth rule addresses the single most consistent wealth-destroying behavior across income levels: spending future money today. This is not about avoiding debt entirely. Mortgages, student loans, and business financing can be legitimate tools for building wealth when the cost of that debt is lower than the return on the asset it finances. The rule is specifically about consumer debt, money borrowed to purchase things that decline in value or produce no financial return. The average American household carries $6,501 in credit card debt, according to Experian's 2023 State of Credit Report. At the Federal Reserve's cited average interest rate of 22%, that balance costs approximately $1,430 per year in interest payments alone. That $1,430 represents money that leaves the household every year and produces nothing: no asset, no equity, no return of any kind. It is pure financial loss on a recurring basis. The rule is treating consumer debt not as a normal feature of financial life, but as a financial emergency in the same category as a broken transmission or a failed appliance, something to be eliminated as rapidly as possible and prevented from recurring through a simple system. That system is spending only money that has already been earned, with one specific exception: purchases that directly generate a return greater than their cost. Everything else is paid with cash or not purchased until the cash exists. Now zoom out entirely. According to the Credit Suisse Global Wealth Report 2023, the median wealth per adult globally is approximately $8,654. Half of all adults on Earth have a total net worth below that figure. An American household with a fully funded emergency fund, zero consumer debt, consistent index fund contributions, and a modest retirement account is not average. By global standards, they are in the top 15% of all adults in terms of financial security. The reason this does not feel true is not because it is not true. It is because financial well-being is experienced relative to the people immediately around you: your neighborhood, your social circle, your colleague's car, your friend's holiday, not relative to the global distribution of wealth that the data actually reveals. The sixth rule is the one most people encounter last and should have encountered first. Protect the income that makes all 5 other rules possible. Every financial plan assumes a functioning income, disability insurance, term life insurance for anyone with dependents, and adequate health coverage are not optional extras for people who want to be financially stable. They are the structural protection without which every other rule becomes meaningless the moment a single medical event or extended illness occurs. According to the Social Security Administration's own data, a 35-year-old American worker has approximately a 1 in 4 chance of becoming disabled before reaching retirement age. 1 in 4. And yet the Council for Disability Awareness found in their 2023 report that fewer than half of American workers have any form of private disability insurance beyond whatever their employer provides, which typically covers only 60% of gross income and often expires after 90 days. The rule is specific: term life insurance, not whole life, not universal life, not any product that combines insurance with investment, for anyone whose death would leave dependents in financial hardship. 10 to 12 times annual income and coverage, purchased in your 30s when premiums are low. Disability insurance covering at least 60% of income, with a waiting period you can bridge with your emergency fund. And health insurance with a deductible your emergency fund can cover without depleting it entirely. These 3 protections are not expenses. They are the load-bearing walls of a financially stable life. Remove them, and the structure stands until the first significant event, and then it does not. Here is why financial stability still feels out of reach, even for people who are objectively closer to it than they realize. The reference point for how you are doing financially is almost never the global median or the national data. It is the person next to you. Your neighbor who just bought a new car, your colleague who mentioned their kitchen renovation, your university friend whose social media documents a life that appears effortlessly funded. What that reference point does not show you is the debt behind the car, the home equity loan behind the renovation, or the credit card balance behind the holidays. You are comparing your internal financial reality, the anxiety, the constraints, the trade-offs, to other people's external financial presentation. That comparison is not just inaccurate. It is systematically biased toward making you feel worse than your actual position warrants. A 2022 study in the Journal of Economic Psychology found that people consistently overestimate the income and net worth of their social peers by an average of 30%. You are measuring yourself against a number that does not exist, and finding yourself lacking against a standard that was never real. The 6 rules do not require a high income. They do not require a financial background. They require a sequence: emergency fund first, high-interest debt eliminated second, everything automated third, low-cost broad market investing fourth, zero consumer debt as an ongoing standard fifth, and income protection in place as the foundation beneath all of it. That sequence, applied consistently to any income level above the bare minimum required for survival, produces financial stability that holds through job changes, market crashes, health events, and everything else that a financial life will eventually encounter. Here is what all of this comes down to. Financial stability is not a feeling. It is a structure. And structures either hold or they do not. Not based on how optimistic you are about them, but based on whether the load-bearing elements are in place. The 6 rules are those load-bearing elements. Each one is specific. Each one has a measurable implementation that costs nothing except the decision to prioritize it. And each one compounds in value the earlier it is established, not because the rules change, but because time amplifies everything in personal finance in both directions. Money invested early grows exponentially. Debt carried long costs exponentially. The gap between starting at 28 and starting at 38 on any of these rules is not 10 years of progress. It is often the difference between the final number being double or half of what it could have been. The one concrete thing worth doing today, not this month, today, is identifying which of the 6 rules is currently missing from your financial structure. Not all 6. The one that is most absent, because that one is the weakest point in the structure, and the weakest point is always where stability fails first when pressure arrives. Financial stability does not mean never feeling financial pressure. It means having a structure strong enough that pressure does not become collapse. Most people who feel financially unstable are not starting from zero. They are starting from a structure with 1 or 2 missing pieces. And 1 or 2 missing pieces, identified and filled, changes the entire load-bearing capacity of everything above them. And here is the question worth sitting with after everything above. If you identified the one rule most absent from your financial life right now, and you implemented only that one thing in the next 30 days, what would be different about how the next financial crisis, when it comes, actually lands for you?